Welcome to this session of Vanilla Street Epistemology. Today, my guest is Glenn Ostlund. Am I saying that right? Glenn Ostlund?
Yeah, Ostlund.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I found out about Glenn from his podcast, Bathing with God. And I listened to those and I was entranced. That was very interesting and fun. And so we're going to do an odd kind of vanilla essay today. Am I reset? Okay, good. That works. I'm going to ask questions of the character inside Bathing with God, which is mostly a dialogue between yourself, or maybe something very close to yourself, and your imagination.
Right.
But I'll let Quad speak for himself. Before we start, I'd like you to tell us about you, and then we'll move into an 8.5-minute piece where Quad actually answers some questions I asked last week. Go ahead.
All right. Well, so I grew up as a Mormon, and I was a Mormon missionary in Japan. So I spent 2 years not doing street epistemology, but close. And when I got back from my mission, I got interested in folklore and mythology, and I went to Indiana University, and I got a master's degree and almost a PhD. I left midway through writing my dissertation, so I'm PhD ABD in folklore and mythology. And let's see. Then in the course of studying folklore and mythology, I stopped being a Mormon, put it that way. And about 10 years ago, I started podcasting. There was a podcast called Mormon Expression that was a lot of ex-Mormons with atheist leanings. I wasn't quite there yet, although I had read Richard Dawkins' God Delusion and identified along with him as a six, which surprised me. I didn't think I was a de facto atheist, but turns out I was. And then about 8 years ago, started a podcast called Infants on Thrones, which is a group of ex-Mormon, atheist-leaning, just kind of making fun of the Mormon Church, making fun of different things that was going on, having conversations about what it meant to us. And in the course of that, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we came across Peter Boghossian's A Manual for Creating Atheists, and read about street epistemology. And I think we did a 5 or 6 part series, maybe it was an 8-part series, just going through that book. And one of our listeners said, hey, there's this guy, Anthony Magnabosco, and Reed, is it Newcomer? Nice Wonder, yeah. And so we had both of them on, and that wrapped up our street epistemology series. And then I've had Anthony on maybe 3 or 4 times since, and just really liked him, really liked the approach. And in the last few years, I've gotten really interested. I got interested in like theoretical physics on the one side of things, but then also like spiritual new age channeling, things like Seth Speaks and Abraham Hicks and all of this stuff over here. So I kind of put them together along with my folklore background in this book called Bathing with God that I just self-published a couple weeks ago. And I'm creating, it's not just a book, it's also a podcast. So what you heard were the first maybe 5 or 6 episodes that constitute the first 4 chapters of the book. And then I'll release a chapter a week until the entire book is out in podcast form. And the way that I like to think about it is it's kind of like a Calvin and Hobbes approach. Like I love the Calvin and Hobbes comic strips. This little boy Calvin with his stuffed tiger, who is also this figment of his imagination. They go on all kinds of adventures and philosophical discussions. And so Bathing with God is an atheist in a bathtub who hears a voice, and the voice may or may not be God, and but definitely identifies as his imagination at the very least. And they just go on these conversations. And one of the biggest topics that I cover in that book is the nature of reality and perception. And one of Quad's claims, Quad is this imaginary voice, Quad claims that everything is a fiction. And the bather's like, what the hell are you talking about? Everything is a fiction. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't feel right. And so there's
that might be the claim I'm hitting you up on. We'll see.
Okay. It could be. It could be. Yeah. And so yeah, as I was looking around for people to read this book and give me feedback, I thought about Anthony, and I reached out to him, and Anthony put you and I together. So that's why we're here.
Yes. Thank you, Anthony. That's extra special. Good.
Yes.
I have gotten an enormous amount of support from my heroes starting this channel, and it blows me. It's very much. Okay, so last week when we were talking about this, I wrote down half a dozen questions, or I forget, and sent them to you because we wanted to ask Quad some things, and you turned it into a podcast. So,
yeah,
without further ado, let's listen to that. This is about 8.5 minutes.
All right.
Just hold your hand up if you want to pause for anything, but otherwise, we're just going to listen right through.
Sure.
Production, play when you're ready.
Hey, Quad.
Hey, what?
I've got some questions for you.
Yes, I know.
Oh, right, because you know everything, don't you?
No. But I am your imagination, so I know everything you know, and then some.
And then some, huh? Sure you do. So, we are going to be interviewed by a street epistemologist.
Yes, I know.
Uh-huh. And he has a few questions for you.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I already know you know. So, let me just ask them so that the people listening to this will know what you're responding to.
Fair enough. Shoot.
All right, here's his first question. I've heard that you are Glenn's imagination.
Where did he hear that?
Wait, I'm not finished with his question.
I know. But where did he hear that?
He listened to the first 4 episodes of the Bathing with God podcast.
Yes, I know. I was there.
You were there when he was listening to the podcast?
Duh. I'm what he was listening to.
What do you mean?
The book and the podcast, created by me, your imagination, the thoughts we created together, put to words, recorded digitally, transmitted through the internet, touching his eardrums, traveling into his brain, that was all me. What happened after that? Well, that's all him.
What are you talking about? Can I please just ask his first question?
Sure, but I think he's confusing you for the bathing character in your book.
Whatever, let me just continue with the question. I've heard that you are Glenn's imagination, yet I've also heard that you existed well before Glenn. Will you probably exist well after Glenn? And then a sub-question, will Glenn exist after Glenn?
I don't remember saying that I existed before Glenn, but if you really want to get imaginative about it, Einstein's theory of relativity suggests that past, present, and future already exist within the fabric of space-time. To quote Brian Greene from The Fabric of the Cosmos, all time exists all the time. So, if you take that approach, then I have always existed, as have you and him and everyone else, within this fabric of time. But it would probably be better to ask if a tree makes sound, if it falls in a forest, if no one's around to hear it.
Wait, why? What does that have to do with anything?
Patience, Iago. I'm getting there. Does a tree make a sound if no one's there to hear it? The correct answer to that question is no. It does not make a sound. Because sound is what happens when disturbed air molecules impact an eardrum. If a tree falls, air molecules will most definitely be disturbed, but if there's no eardrum or any other device around to detect it, aka to hear it, then no, it did not make a sound. Sound requires those 2 parts. It isn't a sound if one of those parts is absent. Similarly, Glenn's imagination requires both Glenn and his disturbing thoughts to imagine things. I suppose that books and podcasts that Glenn has created through his imagination will probably be around after Glenn is not. But that isn't really what he's asking, is it?
What do you think he's asking?
I think he's asking if I am more than your imagination.
Are you?
Of course.
Do you care to elaborate?
I will with his next few questions, but he's also asking you if you believe that you will exist after death.
Do I?
Only if you understand Einstein's theory of relativity correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I do.
I promise that you do not.
Okay, thanks for the vote of confidence. Next question. Do you know anything Glenn didn't know before you told him?
What does he mean by no?
I don't know. I guess he's asking if you're aware of things that I'm not aware of.
How could I be? I am your imagination.
So, what is your answer? Do you know things that I don't know before I tell you, or not?
When you bring a question to me, why do you do it?
You know, with the way that you avoid giving me straight answers, I'm beginning to wonder that myself.
I'm not avoiding anything. But fine, I'll just tell you. You aren't always very aware of all of the things that you actually know. Your brain records data in ways that you really don't understand, and the relationship between your conscious awareness and your subconscious mind is, well, tricky. As your imagination, I pull from your subconscious in ways that sometimes seem to you like I know something that you didn't previously know, but it's really something that you have stored away in that massive basement storage unit that you call your subconscious mind.
Alright, so that's your answer?
Yes. But if you really want to push his buttons, ask me if I ever go any deeper than your conscious mind. Ask me if I ever scan the massive database of Carl Jung's collective unconscious, or if I ever surf on the waves of Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance, or if you really want to get his blood boiling, mention something about Akashic records.
No thanks. I think I'll just move on to the next question. Are you made of highly evolved formless energy?
Yes. So is he. So are you. So is everything. This energy is called electrons and quarks, the fundamental energy that makes atoms, and then molecules and cells and tissues and organs and neurons and synapses and all this amazing stuff in the world we live in. It has been evolving long before this small planet was ever formed in this tiny corner of this infinitely expanding universe. This is why I'm more than your imagination, by the way, because the thoughts that you think and the biological mechanism that imagines those thoughts into existence are also formed from this fundamental energy. It is inescapable. This energy is everything. We are all constantly, unavoidably immersed in it. I'd like to see anyone prove that we're not.
Wow, a straightforward answer. I'm shocked.
Don't be a smartass.
2 more questions then. Are you in communication with God?
A lot of different people mean a lot of different things when they use the word God. What does he mean by God when he's asking that?
I think you're just going to have to use your own imagination to answer that one.
Okay, then let me put it this way. Yes.
That's it? That's all you have to say about it?
You know my take on this question. Let him do his SE skills with you. It'll be fun. This is why you're here.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that one, I guess. Last question. What motivates you?
You do.
I do?
Yes. Your curiosity, your playfulness, your desire to have fun. You are a thinker. You always have been. You play with ideas the way you used to play with Legos, back before Legos were reduced to following instructions to build specific items. You like to push the boundaries of what you know. You like to take words and ideas like they are sand, and build castles and towns and then knock them down and build them back up again. I'm motivated by the enjoyment you get when you engage with me. Now go have a fun interview, and don't worry, I'll be with you the whole time.
I'm not worried.
Sure you aren't.
I'm everything and everywhere. Can you see me in your own reflection? I'm deep within
So that's Oh, I have to reset. Refresh. But it took my button. It didn't show it back. That'll be fine. Okay, so yes, everything is a fiction. Yes, we're connected to God, but we don't know what God means yet. That's fine.
Hmm.
I guess we can start with everything is a fiction. Does that seem like the right claim, or does something else seem better? And we can change
Yeah, I
it.
mean,
We can change
I
claims
can
as we
go
go with
where,
it.
yeah, wherever you want to go with it. So you want to start with everything as a fiction?
Yeah, and I'm asking Quad's opinion because
Mhm.
I recognize that there's at least three people that I could be talking to. I could be talking to the real genuine Glenn, and I could be talking to the Glenn character, and I could be talking to the Quad character. So mostly I'm talking to Quad, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, how
But
about we
if
talk to
there's
Glenn, because
okay,
let's
so we'll
talk to Glenn. Yeah, because
so is this going to be the real Glenn or the Glenn character from the
yeah. We'll go with the real Glenn, just
real
so
Glenn?
that I don't get like Jordan Peterson hate or something like that, where like
Okay.
I can't nail you down on anything. quit wiggling
Oh
around.
no, that's fine. That's fine. So in
Yeah.
a lot of these cases, I'm going to ask you to project what Quinn would say, or sorry, Quad.
Quad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, Quinn's another
That's
person
okay.
entirely. Uh, yeah. So Quad says everything is a fiction.
Mm-hmm.
How certain do you think Quad is that everything qualifies as a fiction?
Oh, I think that Quad is quite certain. That from the perspective of Quad, everything
Mhm.
that a human being thinks and perceives as reality is a fiction. And
Okay.
what Quad means by that is a fiction is a composite, like selecting certain details, omitting other details to create something that's whole, something that's a story. But that creation, that fabrication, isn't whole or complete. It's missing things, and the
Mm.
things that it's missing could have an impact on what this thing is or not. We don't really know because you don't know what's
Okay.
missing. You don't know how it could impact what's there. So Quad would say, from that perspective, everything is a fiction because humans only perceive a small fraction of reality around them through the senses that have evolved to detect a small fraction of what's around us, and these minds that have evolved to do what it is that they do. Quad
Mhm.
Quad is an attempt to think about reality from the perspective of this source energy, these atoms that were forged in the stars that have been around a lot longer than humans have, a lot longer than this planet has, and
Okay.
so he would say that everything is a fiction from the point of view that we really don't know what we don't know.
Okay. So it sounds like to me definitionally, like there are no married bachelors, that kind of. So I'm going to pick 100,
Okay.
and we're happy to move these around. Nobody has to live up to their claims, by the way, in conflict with this case. So it's fiction, not exclusive of fact, is I think what I'm hearing for the definition. That
Yeah.
my model that 2 + 2 = 4 is a fiction. I'm using math. Math is a fiction. It's a made up language,
Yeah.
and
You're
yet there can
using
be some
symbols that,
objectivity to it. Yeah.
yeah, the way that we communicate those ideas, the ideas of mathematics, is communicated through traditionally learned symbols.
Hmm.
Like the
Okay.
number 2, and then the plus sign, and then the other 2, and then the equal sign. That, why isn't that a triangle
All those
or a
are
squiggly
arbitrary.
line or something else? These are arbitrary
Mhm.
fictions that it's a shared fiction. It's an intersubjective fiction that we've all agreed
Mhm.
these are the symbols that we're going to use. Yeah.
Okay. So in asserting that everything is, if I listen generously, I hear everything that you have inside is just a model of reality, and your model is necessarily incomplete and is
Yeah.
obviously potentially inaccurate.
Yeah, and I think there's different layers there because you could say, in comparison to The way that I see the world compared to the way that you see the world, there are going to be differences. There's going to be variations because your life experience is different from my life experience. So comparing that, I've got this idea of what the world is that's a fiction that was created based on everything I've come across in my life, and so do you. But then even the things that I think, because there's this relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, that what I think is real, what I think I experienced, may not really be what I experienced. It might be something else. So there might even be levels of fiction within my own perspective of what I think is going on.
Delusion,
So
mismemory, misremembering, all those things. Yeah. Misperception. Okay, so I'm going to pick on somebody. What if Boris said, "Hey, by calling everything a fiction, you are denying fact. How can, or are you denying fact?"
I don't think it's denying fact, but that's the tricky part. That's the tricky part that I've been like, when people have asked me this question in the past, I usually go back to like that Lego example that facts are like these little building blocks, these bricks that we then use to create a story. And so in the book, there's times where I ask, could you give me an example of a fact? But I'm not sure that I have a really good answer to that question. I don't think, because if I really think about it, I wanted to make a claim that these facts are fictions, I might be able to do it. I might be able to say the fact that we're looking at is a fact only from one given perspective, maybe from the human perspective, the way that we measure the speed of light, or the way that we understand what 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen is. If we were another species of life altogether, we might not perceive it that way. We might perceive it to be something different. So within the constraints of human perception, this is a fact that is verifiable. It's observed. It's repeatable. We're able to accept this as a fact. But you look at the history of facts; they change. There's malleability there. So if facts are always open to be updated when there's new, better data, then are they fictions that are constantly becoming better fictions? Maybe.
Okay, so fictions might be very close to reality, or might be a long ways away, and we can't really tell. I have a comment.
Or
so because
fictions are the reality that we're experiencing. Like the reality that I'm experiencing is a fiction. So I think one of the things that I'm hoping to do, and this really has just been my own mind, as I've been trying to reconcile these differences in my own mind. If somebody's saying everything is a fiction, you might think that's very pejorative, or that I'm denying the nature of reality, or I'm saying that everything is false, because we associate the word fiction.
Like by episode 2 or 3.
Yeah, like true or false.
You're probably
going
to tell us more.
I
can just tell you're foreshadowing that we're going to learn some of these details as we move on through the book. I haven't actually picked up the book. I'm just following along with the podcast myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Gauss Prime says, so because we have subjective experience that isn't 100% accurate, everything is a fiction. So I think that's a yes.
Yeah. By the way that I'm defining fiction. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that it isn't true. And that doesn't mean that it isn't real. And that doesn't mean that it isn't meaningful. It's just, it's a subjective truth. It's a subjective reality.
Okay. Another question from the audience. If you found that other animals use the same maths as we do, would this change your approach of what is reality, aka math is a human fiction?
Well, I'm going to go more general on that. If we found that animals use math like we do, would it change my view of reality? Absolutely, it would. What would it change it to? I'm not really sure. But if that became a fact of nature, then I would need to update what I think nature is.
Okay. Another question from the audience. How do you define subjective and objective?
Mm. How do I define subjective and objective?
Mhm.
Well, I think that a subjective thing is very personal, whereas objective it could go outside of the personal, and it's true for more people than just for one person.
Mm.
I think that's kind of the quick and sloppy
Okay.
way that I think of those two terms.
Okay. So for you, the dividing line is subjective is one or a few, and objective is observe a very similar model.
Yeah, and if I really wanted to get cynical about it, I would say that
Sure.
everything is subjective, and that
Mhm.
objective is nested underneath subjective, and the main difference between the two is the number of people that you have agreeing on this, and how convincing their evidence is to demonstrate that it's an objective truth, an objective reality, rather than just a subjective reality. But again, I mean, going back to what I said earlier, I think that even those objective facts can change if there's newer, better data observations that come along. So then it becomes a new, updated, objective reality.
Okay. Violet asks, can subjective and objective be simultaneously true?
Could you give me an example?
Ivy Elf, you're welcome to unmute. Let's see. And could you give an example of simultaneous on objective and subjective? You able to
I'm
unmute?
brushing my teeth. Okay, so
Oh, okay.
maybe just the act of brushing your teeth is both a subjective and an objective reality, because if you were having a dream right now that you were brushing your teeth and I was looking at you, I wouldn't see that you were brushing your teeth, but you would be having the subjective experience of brushing your teeth. You might even your mouth might even salivate. You might even taste the mint of the toothpaste in your mind, in your dream, and that's a subjective reality for you. But I'm looking at you sound asleep, and it's not an objective reality that you're brushing your teeth right now. I don't know.
Okay.
That's my stab at the question.
Okay.
The way that I understand those terms.
For follow-up, are feelings subjective and are they objectively true?
I think that feelings are subjective, and I think it's. I guess I would need to better understand how you're using the terms subjective and objective. But I think if the two of us, or if we're in a group and we're exposed to the same incident, Donald Trump standing up to deliver a speech, and somebody is like just filled with pride and patriotism, and another one is filled with loathing. So is it objectively true that we're having emotional experiences to this thing? Yes. Are the emotional experiences the same? No, they're different. Why are they different? Because we are different. We have different reasons for feeling what we feel. Is each response legitimate? Yes. Is each response valid? Yes. Is each response really happening? Yes. So I think that's how I would answer that question.
I like that. Yes, you are welcome. We are entertaining your questions. Of course we are. That's what we do here. We love the questions from the audience. Okay, so I think I understand your position and Quad's position regarding the fiction question. That it's all a question of models, and it's all subjective, and objective is maybe reachable asymptotically, but you can't ever get to perfect objective. You can get closer and closer to objective, and you might be wrong. That kind of thing. I'm hearing that. Okay. Very good. So I think thank you for that conversation. I appreciate that.
You know what I'm interested in having you ask me about?
Yes, please.
Because I want to explore how I really feel about this too. This idea
Yes.
of source energy equals God, with another way of saying that is that the energy that makes up us and everything in the world is intelligent and is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, the creator of all things.
Okay.
Like there's no evidence
Mhm.
that I'm aware of aside from the fact that we are intelligent. Like we are aware,
Mhm.
we are conscious.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's that question is the energy that makes us also aware and conscious in ways that we just don't understand and we can't perceive. And that's where it gets into those kind of God territories that can be uncomfortable for an atheist
Yeah. Totally.
to explore. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna treat this like a fresh claim. Source energy equals God, or source energy leads to God, or all of the source energy is God, or any of those things.
Mhm.
So make that a squiggly equals me. Uh,
Mm.
roughly similar to. So, what do you see are the minimum qualifications to qualify as God?
You cut out there. What are the minimum qualifications for what?
For something to qualify as God? What are some of the things that for it to be called God, it has to have at least these qualities or property?
Yeah, I mean, this might not be the best one to take it on because I have no idea how to answer that question.
That's okay.
Because I think that question makes it seem like there's times when calling something God is appropriate and times when calling God
Mhm.
is not appropriate, and when is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate. And I don't feel comfortable answering that. I don't even know how I feel about that, Dolly.
Okay. Good. Yes. Well, that's
because
a
I
very
do think
useful
that.
answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm. So we're uncertain about what would qualify something to be defined as God. So now we're
Yes.
looking at what do you know about the source energy uh, that might lead you to think that it is you mentioned intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
source energy intelligent?
Yeah. So what I understand about source energy, and I also use that interchangeably with subatomic energy, or maybe quantum energy. That it is first and foremost a field that fills the entire universe.
Okay.
That a quantumized bundle of the electron field is an electron, and all of the electrons in my body are connected to all of the electrons that are in your body and everywhere in the universe. And
Okay.
the reason that I have a high degree of certainty in that claim is that there's a physicist named David Tong at Cambridge who he said it, and
Okay.
it made sense to me, and I accept what he said there. So I start from there, and then look at what that energy is doing. That the electrons, the quarks, they combine in some way to create atoms. The atoms create molecules. The molecules create cells, and on upwards to organs and systems, and an entire human body. And I can ask at different stages. Is there some kind of awareness? Is there something that is intelligent? DNA obviously is intelligence, and it's intelligent. That is this energy that's organized in a certain way that creates a blueprint for the human body. We know that our conscious minds, our personality, is aware and intelligent. The cells in our bodies that interact with the environment around them, and they open up to let in certain things. They stay closed to other things. They communicate with each other. There's some form of awareness. It looks like there's some kind of an intelligence. I mean, each nucleus in that cell carries the DNA itself. So just by deduction, it would make me think that at every level you go down, there would be some form of awareness, especially since you look at how far we have come as a species, Homo sapien, in this short amount of time on this planet Earth in our own evolution. That's an extension of this energy that's also been evolving. It is the energy that's been evolving in certain narrow conditions that create Homo sapien, as opposed to frogs or mushrooms or trees or other expressions of this energy, and which also evidence their own form of intelligence and awareness and consciousness. So that's what gives me some degree of certainty that this energy is intelligent.
So you said DNA. Does this mean that something that shows? So imagine that I've got DNA in a virus and it is in a dormant state. Would you agree that that is not alive?
The word, I mean, if you're defining life as separate from existence, I would say it's definitely existing. It's there. Is it, but you're saying it's dormant, so it's not alive. It's dormant. It's sleeping. It's not activated intelligence.
So
but
the DNA is not performing any of its ordinary function.
But it's there.
Dormancy. Yes,
sure,
it's there, and it shows lots of information and lots of potential to, if interacting in the right system, it can almost like choose to do the right thing, or train to do the right thing.
So and then choose is a really interesting word. Well, I just saying choose is a really interesting word to use. It's problematic, but
it is. The choose thing comes down to, when I'm trying to define intelligence, is a thermostat intelligent? It's a thermostat in my mind is the simplest possible robot. For me, I define a robot as something that can measure something about the world and then make a choice of action based on that measurement. And
I'm going to look up intelligence
use the thermostat
real quick.
as a really and I'm mostly concerned about your meaning of intelligence, and it doesn't have to match the dictionary.
But I've tried to keep my definitions as close to definition or dictionary definitions as possible. So intelligence here, the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, the collection of information. So a thermometer would be a collection of information. It's a way to gauge.
A thermostat.
Oh, a thermostat.
A thermostat. It's actually going to turn on and off the heater or the air conditioning based on measuring the temperature.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I've got those. I forget what they're called, but it's a smart thermostat that recognizes patterns, and it has the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. It'll shut itself off, and so there's some form of intelligence in that thermostat. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. That example, I could, that's some artificial intelligence. There's some fuzzy logic, some good programming, and a simple, like a bimetal mechanical thermostat that just moves up and down based on the temperature and closes a switch. That would seem like the rudimentary, the 1-bit intelligence. I don't know, intelligence. Okay. If asks, Frederick asks, how did you come to the conclusion that this specific energy is shared among very different things, DNA, quantums, molecules? And you may have already answered this, because I think you're saying that all energy from the subatomic out and all the energy that was 10 to the 80 something particles in the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot more, because we don't know what the limits of it.
Yeah, that came from theoretical physicist David Tong of Cambridge University. There's a YouTube video called Quantum Field Theory, The Building Blocks of Reality. I watched that about a year or two ago, and it just blew my mind.
Okay.
And that was what made me think, oh, okay, so all of this energy that we are is connected to everything else.
So I haven't asked your confidence in this source energy relating to quantum energy, quantum field theory.
Mhm.
Do you think I haven't asked your confidence, and I'm wondering if your confidence is proportionate to the evidence you're telling me about, or if there's a lot more evidence, and maybe your confidence is higher than what would come from
My
any source.
confidence is probably higher than the evidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you care to throw that on a scale of 100?
My confidence in it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
No pressure on.
I'd give it. I'd give it maybe a 90. Let's call it a 90.
Okay,
Yeah.
a 90.
I'm pretty confident. Yeah.
Good.
And remind me, what did I just give a 90? I gave a 90 that
a 92 that
David Tong's quantum field theory is correct.
Yes, that David Tong understands quantum field theory, and therefore you're saying that if he is correct in what he says, that source energy is all that energy that the physicists are talking, and which includes mass energy.
So I mean, source energy is it's just a term that I'm using for that that energy, those energy fields.
Okay. How do we differentiate between intelligent energy versus dumb luck? If something, I have dice.
Yeah.
And if I roll a dice, is there intelligence?
Yeah. Well, the intelligence in those dice is whatever the mechanism is that has the atoms arranged in such a form that they are dice, and that they are you, and that they're your hand that's falling and rolling it. And then dumb luck is, I mean, I think there's laws of physics that would tell you the velocity of your roll and how it's spinning in the dice, and that's what determines, like the dumb luck thing. But the question is the relationship between intelligent energy and dumb luck. Yeah, those are cool. What are they?
3D printed dice. These are gaming dice.
Okay.
That are sort of a different shape, and I thought it'd be fun to talk about dice because you were talking about the form. So if I roll a dice, is it determined what the result will be before I roll the dice?
I don't think so.
Okay, so
I have very low confidence that anybody can mentally will that I'm going to roll double sevens,
I don't
stuff like that. Yeah. So if you're asking about my level of confidence there of intelligent energy being able to predict or determine the outcomes of what that energy is or does, no, I'm not confident. I don't have high confidence.
So intelligence probably can't see. The next one is determinism versus random. If I were able to go back, roll some dice, and then go back in a time machine, would I see the same dice rolled? If time were replayed, would it come out the same? This is a hard determinism versus soft determinism question.
I like the question. If all things that went into that roll the first time are exactly the same the second time around, then you'll get the same result, I would expect. But if you got a different result, then I would think, okay, there's some variables in here that have changed. What are they? Something's different. This isn't the exact same moment that we're reliving. There's something different that happened in here that so that's what I would think.
Yeah, well, there might be two of me 5 minutes ago. That could really mess things up.
Oh yeah, just the fact that you're there. You've Marty McFly'd yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many stories about what happens with time travel, and none of them. I don't think any.
Time travel.
Yeah. So determinism, we're unsure about. Determinism versus randomness, that's okay. the this comes down to trying to understand what qualifies as intelligence. And
Mhm.
I think my minimum intelligent example is a thermostat. But you were talking about the intelligence, even like something that could be called awareness at
Mm.
the cellular level or even the atomic level. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, and intelligence and awareness are probably two separate things.
Okay.
I think that intelligence is collecting information and then doing something with that information.
Okay.
And I think awareness is maybe one of the things that results as, as a result of having certain information organized in a certain way. Like I would say that if we're looking at rocks compared to human beings,
Hmm.
down at the fundamental energy level, it's the same stuff. It's electrons and quarks, and but the way that it's organized up through its organization, there's intelligence at each level. But is there awareness at each level? And I don't know. There's not the same level of awareness or consciousness that a rock has that a human being would have, and there isn't any evidence really that a rock has any awareness at all.
Hmm.
But if I'm looking at the cells in my body,
Hmm.
or I'm looking at certain single-celled organisms like a paramecium, a paramecium is able to move towards food and move away from danger. How does it know
Hmm.
to do that? I think
Yeah.
that's a form of fundamental awareness. It's not the same thing as human consciousness, but
Right.
it might be an early, like, we evolved from that. All of the cells
Yeah.
in our bodies used to be single-celled floating around organisms until they grouped together to eventually, over a long period of time, become what we are. And so we're
Hmm.
looking at the history of, or the evolution of awareness, the evolution of consciousness, maybe the evolution of intelligence as an organism learns in their environment and they pass genetically to another thing. Like it evolves and it branches out into 8 billion different species of life, and each one of them is a form
Hmm.
of intelligence and consciousness.
Okay. Do you have to have awareness to have intelligence, or do you have to have intelligence to have awareness? Are those two
Yeah.
ideas tied together?
My guess, and I don't have a strong degree of certainty in this, but my guess would be that intelligence comes first. And,
Okay.
because again, I would say that the energy inside of the rock is intelligence. It is a manifestation of intelligence, that it's able to arrange itself in that form. And, but is it conscious and aware? I don't think so. But there are some forms of intelligence that are conscious and aware. So I think that's the
Okay.
relationship between the two of them, but I'm not strongly confident on it.
All right. From the audience, is your idea of source energy a human fiction? I paraphrased that. I hope I
Yeah,
understood it.
for sure.
It is.
For sure.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Gauss asks, are black holes intelligent because they collect energy? Is there? I'm first. This presumes that black holes are intelligent. So before I even are black
Yeah.
holes intelligent?
Yeah, that's a good question. A black hole is a collapsed star, right?
Yeah.
Um, what happens to the atomic energy inside of the star that makes it collapse in on itself? Is there atomic? Are there atoms? I don't know enough about black holes.
I
I
can't
love the
say what's on
question,
the
though.
inside of a black hole, but before a black hole forms, there's a great deal of mass, and I think there's a
Mhm.
that's like 2.7 solar masses, or I forget. But if it's bigger than something, and then it goes through a supernova, the inner part will collapse down to below a particular radius, and
Yeah.
an event horizon will be formed, and then no further mass will go out past that,
Yeah.
because it would have to go faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
Essentially, space-time is curved enough to where the speeds.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I love this idea. Very densely packed atoms. So if
Mhm.
it's very densely packed atoms, I would say that what is it packed with? And it's packed with what I would say is intelligence. That for whatever reason, when black holes form, there's like this
Okay.
this pattern that like the life cycle of a star, the life cycle of an atom. or the atoms in that star. And so it's following a certain rhythm and pattern that's predictable. And what is it that's making it do that? Well, it's doing it itself, but it's its own intelligent
Gravity.
response to, the forces around it.
Okay.
And, so
is a
it's an
rock
interesting
rolling
question.
down a hill doing an intelligent thing?
Is it doing an intelligent thing?
Yeah, is a rock
Is it
rolling down a hill
gathering
due to
intelligence
gravity?
with each little bump on it? Is it like feeling the impact of it and recording it? And I don't know, what is it? Is that somehow impacting what it is, and changing it as it recorded? Is it aware that that's happening? I don't know.
Yeah.
I love the question though.
Okay. Frederick asks, would you agree with the idea that mountains, lands, objects are the result of an intelligent energy?
Yeah, I mean, and anything is the result of everything is the result of an intelligent energy if you accept that atoms are intelligent energy.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as saying that there's like some god or some intelligent being that's the given the blueprint of anything like that. So I want to be careful
extending
with
the
that.
definition of intelligence down to the nano.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there a gradient of intelligence?
I think so.
Some things more intelligent than So if
I would think so.
For me, when I walked in here, I had that for my gradient of intelligence, the least one that I had an example was that thermostat that I was talking. Makes one measurement, makes a simple binary choice based on a simple measurement. Doesn't even really have memory. I mean, that's a robot with the least amount of intelligence, but of course it's composed of atoms and that sort of thing. And then we have humans, which have more intelligence. We have animals that are somewhere in the middle. If everything is intelligent, what does it mean to say that something is intelligent? If I say my version of intelligence is thermostat up and your version goes further down, if we include everything in it, are we saying anything?
There's that reminds me of one of the quotes that I have in the book of, like you might as well, if you're going to call God everything isn't distinct from anything. And so it doesn't really show you anything. It's not really very instructive. Right. I think you're asking a version of that question here.
I think I am.
But if I understand, you're asking me if there are gradations of intelligence, and if so, but if it's all intelligent, what's the point of even looking at gradations? Is that your question?
Maybe, or maybe desiring a word for the intelligence below some arbitrary boundary, so that we could say, because this higher intelligence exists, and maybe there's this lower intelligence, or maybe there's this mid-range intelligence, therefore we can come to a conclusion about something. Whereas if it's all intelligence, there's no conclusions I can draw, I think.
Yeah. See, if I'm thinking about an atom, or if I even break apart an atom to this quantum energy, these quarks, or electrons, and I think about them the way that I would think of like a seed that I plant in the ground that grows into a tree. Like a seed has the genetic information to know, okay, this is going to be an apple tree compared to a tomato bush, or something like that.
Yes.
But this fundamental energy is all of those things. It can be all of those things. So I wouldn't look at that as a lower energy. I would look at that as a higher intelligence, because it has the potential to become anything and everything. It's just when it interacts in certain ways, or it combines, like whatever the binary code of nature is from the quantum quark, up quarks and down quarks, it can arrange itself in any of those things. So I might say that that's a higher intelligence, even though it's at a lower level, how we would usually think of it, and that our minds, our ability to think, is one expression of what that intelligence is doing. And we typically think of intelligence in terms that we're familiar with. And so we think of an intelligent person, or having an intelligent conversation, or something like that. And I'm thinking of it more in the terms of the energetic potential to become something, like that DNA, like I ask in the book, is there some kind of energetic DNA behind our DNA? Like, how is it that that energy knows how to grow and become all of the things, the many, many things that we are aware of, and even more that we're not aware of that exist in this universe? It's all of it. It knows how to do all of it.
Yeah.
It knows. It
I think
has
we
the
just crossed
intelligence.
into
It
evolution
becomes
in
it.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. Um, yeah. All right. So it almost seems like this intelligence is sort of like the
It's not like we got a Jordan Peterson
there's a
reference. I was
thing.
trying to avoid that.
Oh, was it?
Somebody
I'm not
commented,
familiar
this sounds
enough
like
with
Jordan
Jordan.
Peterson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right. I don't know Jordan Peterson well enough to know that distinction.
I don't know him that well
I do know
either.
sometimes he bloviates for a while, and I try to follow it, and I
Yeah.
just can't. And other times
Yeah.
he says things that are just like, obviously, yeah, well, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like it sounds like Jordan Peterson taking a word, making it into something only he understands. Yeah, I've noticed Jordan Peterson doing that sometimes. I think in this case, though, we're trying very hard to make it a word that we're all getting. And if you want to understand more about how Glenn thinks, check out the podcast.
Yeah.
He exposes his brain very well in this.
Yeah. I also think that most people, when we use words, we don't take the time to define what we actually mean by the words that we're using, because it's so cumbersome and pedantic and tedious. And so
yes,
the exchange of language is so sloppy all the times. That somebody like Jordan Peterson that says, well, here's what I mean when I use this word, and it's different than what other people are meaning, or this common fiction that this is what the word means for everyone. Like, well, it doesn't really. And so here's what it means to me. I'm explaining it to you, and maybe it's confusing. Why wouldn't it be? It's coming out of my experience,
and that's okay,
which isn't your experience. And I get it.
I welcome confusion. I welcome especially a path through confusion.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like the thing you were calling intelligence, or the intelligence force, or the force that causes DNA to become more complex and improve over time, is sort of like the localized reversal of entropy that life means, and that kind of can bring it into me for a physics perspective of that the general rule is entropy is always down. But when we can cause a localized reversal of it, we could get to something really profound.
Remind me, entropy is saying that everything is in a constant state of increasing chaos, like going from a state of order to chaos. Is that entropy?
I'll accept that. Yeah, that's pretty close.
So when you're saying reverse entropy,
there's a difference between, there's cold places and there's hot places. And entropy means that it's all getting close to the same temperature. So eventually, when enough entropy happens, we will no longer have a capacity to do work, because while there'll be all the energy, there won't be a work potential left. The getting rid of the work potential is the entropy. So if you can generate a work potential because you're in a gradient, and you can have a localized reversal of that to where you can generate more and more work potential, that's what I'm talking about in terms of life.
I'm nodding as if I understand what you just said, but I really don't.
Right. That's okay. I'm right at the edge of my own understanding right there anyway. So I don't even, my confidence keeps dropping the more words I add. Okay, so a question: if dumb luck could potentially be the creation force of the world or universe, so just a random thing happened and it started, and the same possibility would be for the source energy as well. What makes you pick the second instead of the first?
I didn't follow that.
Okay, let me see if I can paraphrase. If it's possible that the world came to be as it is through chance, and the same possibility would be for this source energy. So if the source energy were intelligent, no, I don't think that you would say that. I think you're saying that the source energy is intelligent, and you're seeing the advantages of an intelligent design. I think you're seeing intelligent design in the world to say that there's intelligence all the way down to
Well,
the sub.
here's where my mind goes with that
Mhm.
question is like, what's the relationship between intelligent energy and dumb luck or chance? And
Mhm.
where I go with that is I look at evolution, and I
Mhm.
ask, it, did life evolve on this planet as a result of dumb luck and circumstance? And yeah,
Mhm.
but it's dumb
Mhm.
luck and
Okay.
circumstance that then influences the course that species is going to go and other species is going to go. And so these random events that happen that then have an impact on the next version of life.
Mhm.
What is the mechanism of uh, adapting to a hostile environment? There's information that's recorded and stored, and that's how
Mhm.
evolution happens. So it's intelligence that's working its way through this model of randomness and dumb luck. That's how I would see it. Natural selection, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, but you
Okay.
can't have natural selection without that intelligence that's recording and remembering and
Why?
those are such anthropomorphic words to use
Yeah.
that to try to put that on this idea of energy makes it problematic. But that
Okay. So let me take you back to a time when there was
yeah,
one cell. I don't mean single
okay,
cells. I mean there
hmm,
was one. There was because there was a
okay,
first one, right? I assume. I assume abiogenesis worked by that there was one cell and then there became multiple.
mm.
Uh, and that cell splits. Was that the first decision that was ever made?
Well, is it a decision? I mean, are you saying it was a conscious choice? You start with one cell, but
Mm-hmm.
that cell, if you were really going to look at how it got there, it's how many molecules are in that cell, and how many atoms
Oh.
are in those molecules, and is this the first time that those atoms were ever arranged in such a way to create those molecules and then to create that cell? And then, like, how does the cell know to split and divide? Why is it doing it? Were there cells
Mm-hmm.
that arose first but didn't split and divide, and they just divided out? And so a natural selection of
Mm.
survival were cells that were able to split and divide. And so that cell that
Okay.
was able to do that then duplicated more and kept evolving, because there is that intelligence that in the form of the DNA, or is it RNA at a cell level? I don't know what it is at a cell level. Maybe it is DNA that says that what I'm duplicating into is going to follow this blueprint with
Mm-hmm.
these tendencies and characteristics that allow it to split and reproduce, and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to keep it going. Others that don't, sorry, no soup for
Okay.
you.
I mostly only know eukaryotic cells, like the kind I'm made of. I don't know about
Hmm.
RNA life back in the abiogenesis time. I completely don't know that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, last few questions. Hypothetically, what could you learn? This is not something that has to be true, but what could you learn
Hmm.
tomorrow that would increase your confidence that things are intelligent all the way down to the subatomic?
What could I learn tomorrow that would increase my confidence that intelligence
Mm-hmm.
exists all the way down to the atomic level?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think if I hopped onto YouTube and I watched like a TED talk or a lecture of somebody who had discovered something and was presenting some evidence that I hadn't heard before, that might be something that could make. If you're asking me what that evidence would be,
Mm-hmm.
I'd really
Yeah,
have to
what kind
spend
of?
some time with Quad on that one, because now we're really going into the
Okay.
imagination.
Oh,
and
if you
I
do,
don't.
please record it and
Yeah.
allow me to listen in. I would love to hear
Okay.
what Quad has to say about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Especially. And then the opposite question is, what hypothetically could you learn tomorrow that would reduce your confidence that intelligence reaches all the way down into the subatomic?
Yeah, let me put a pin on those, and I'll work on those, and I'll get
Good.
something to you, because
Thank you.
yeah, those are great questions. What would reduce my confidence What would be disconfirming evidence for me? Yeah, I'll take a stab at that.
Okay. Well, that's the end of my flowchart. The hypotheticals are the
Okay.
last thing that I usually ask. And then I don't want to hide behind neutrality. Is there anything you want to ask me about any of these topics? I'm not even sure that I have positions on most of them.
No, it's a fun conversation. I enjoy having it, and then because of my background, being raised as a Mormon, certainty was a fiction that we were spoon fed. Standing up in front of everybody in church and saying, "I know that this is true. I know that this is true. I know that this is true." And so, part of my deconstruction of all of that has been I really have had to get comfortable living in a world that I'm not certain in, and then applying that to other models of reality that I come. And that's what I really like about street epistemology when I've come across it. It's like, okay, well, we really don't want to attack you, but we want to understand how do you have this level of certainty in the claims that you have. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything more to say to that, but that I really appreciate the approach, and I like the group. I'm not active in the community of street epistemologists, but the ones that I've interacted with, I've really enjoyed the interaction tremendously.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of our community. Really big fan. A regular question that we get is, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
Again, it assumes
and sometimes green.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Blue,
sometimes green.
Okay.
Oh, I do have a question for you, Doug.
Yes.
Your first response when we were chatting on Discord was that you both liked and disliked what you heard, and you said something about how it was helping like test the thickness of your skin, or something along those lines. Could you talk about that a little bit more? That was an interesting comment.
Yeah. I think you play quad as I think you play quad very well as over certain and a bit condescending. Yes, I already know that.
Right.
And I think that's a fun thing. And so it reminds me that the game that quad is playing, my knee jerk reaction would be this is like, oh yes, yeah. And I love that I'm not allowed to do that. And I've grown to really like quad in spite of in spite of those things which would really turn me off.
Yeah.
So yes, quad is a good guy and a bad guy all at once, and vague and infuriating, and that's okay.
Yeah. Cool.
That's what I meant. Oh, let's see. Pasta Mike asks, what is your favorite ice cream flavor, and is there a potential flavor yet to come out that could change your mind on your current choice?
I'm not a huge consumer of ice cream, but when I am, I like what is it? Haagen-Dazs has like a coconut pineapple. I really like that one. Is there a flavor that could come out that would knock my socks off? Oh, for sure. But I just don't know what it is yet. It would have a really nice mixture of tangy, tartness, sweet. And I'll tell you this: I was in Peru, in Lima, and there was a dessert there called chirimoya. It's a fruit called chirimoya that it's almost like the texture of a grapefruit, but maybe it kind of tastes a little bit like a Chinese lychee. And it was something I'd never experienced before, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I can't get them up here in the U.S. It's only down in Peru. So there's definitely some things ahead of me in my life to experience that could become my new favorites when it comes to ice cream flavors or desserts or anything like that.
Yes, Pasta Mike has agreed, definitely. And FK says that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Pineapple coconut. It's been a while since I've tasted ice cream. I have to be very, very careful with sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would agree, it's going to be something in the sweet and sour at the same time.
Mhm.
And I'm probably, in my case, going to add alcohol, which is another thing I'm not allowed to have.
You got that's what to avoid.
It's all the things I can't have, all in one little cup with Ben and Jerry's written on the side, probably. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for this conversation. Does anybody else in the audience have any questions that they'd like to pipe up with before I release him? Forbidden dessert. Yes, FK. It is forbidden dessert. In the moment, this is Glenn's channel. Website. And he's going to add the current podcast to it. He's already had
several. I need to update it. Yeah.
So you can while away the hours listening to Glenn and Glenn's imagination, amongst other things. And if you're at all like me, I guarantee you will be entertained by it. Thank you very much, Glenn, for coming aboard.
Yeah, thank you, Dolly. I really enjoyed it.
Really appreciated the conversation. Thank you.
Cool.
Here are 5 YouTube channels that I like very much, and they are part of a list of maybe 12 or 13 right now that are under the promoted channels if you go to my YouTube channel. These are all about SE. If you are really interested in this method of street epistemology, my favorite, it doesn't matter if, that's not a right sentence. If you're really interested, go to streetepistemology.com. It's one of my favorite places where we've gathered all this stuff together, written by the community. And this is provided by Street Epistemology International. Thank you for joining for this edition of Vanilla Street Epistemology. If you would like to be a guest on my show in doing SE together or talking about SE or any of the categories that I have, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.